So a lot of work to do here. It's the Williams Brothers kit, this motor. It's their 1/12 scale WASP. 1/12 scale WASP dummy engine. It's designed to fit over an electric or one of the smaller Cox models, gas engine. But at any rate, a lot of extra pieces and parts here yet to go on this. Of course, it has to be painted and fitted onto the model. Not only that, but there's going to be quite a bit of shaping happening around the nose. This is not going to be a blunt, flat area here at all. There's a lot of contour sanding has to be done, shaping has to be done. You can kind of see through the gesso, which is what this opaque white coating is. It's a surface prep for painters. Use it on canvas. And one of the my mentor, actually a friend from model making forums, shared the use of that. He's also a very good artist, and suggested using this also on the balsa surface as a prep. I actually go through about 4 or 5 stages. This would be the initial coat of, the initial sanding and shaping has been done. The initial sanding and shaping. The first couple passes with the spackle have been applied, and now the first layer of gesso. So sanding, spackle, gesso, and that'll be done at least 4 times. With sanding in between. In other words, when this gesso is dry, I'll be sanding this lightly, probably with a 220 grit on a block. And right now I started with 100 grit. This is 100 grit. So the initial sanding and shaping of the fuselage is 100 grit, 80 grit in places depending on how much shaping there is. And, they call it carving. When I use the heavy grit sandpaper, I call that my carving. Shaping is done with 100 grit, 120 grit, and then surface prep is done with 150 grit to 220 grit, and then a final. Right before I paint, I go over everything with about a 320 grit sandpaper, pretty fine stuff. The idea is to get to replicate, a tight fabric and metal and polished wood. So anything but just a balsa. We want to eliminate all the grain, all this stuff. We want to eliminate any flaws, any errors, any seams. This will be treated. What happened here is we had the rear deck of the fuselage, and then this cockpit area had to be skinned over, which created a lip here of about almost 1/8 of an inch, 3/32 anyway. So what I did was I cut 1/16 inch strip stock and just butted it up to that raised portion there, butted it up behind this sheet, extended it to about where the angle changed on the rear deck. This was an upward incline, and then it kind of leveled out here. So what I want to do is have this line, this angled line, be as straight as possible here, a straight shot, and have it a smooth connection here to the back of the cockpit combing. And then these will be cut out. I've already made a template for that. Where did I put it? Here. So at some point when the fuselage is prepped, I'll be cutting these out. Got the center lines there. Cutting these out and then wrapping them with a wire. This will be stripped off of here, the wire pulled out of it, so that just the tubing is left, slotted tubing, and it'll fit on that lip all the way around the cockpit. That's the plan anyway. So we've got a few rough spots here, not too bad. Again, after the initial setup, initial sanding, initial spackle and initial gesso coating, we don't look too bad. It's not great, but it's far from final. We got a ways to go here. At least 4 more series of that kind of prep. These will be taken down. Again, more filler will be coated in the next 3 or 4 passes, or 2 or 3 passes with the filler. I'll just be applying it directly by hand. You wet it just a little bit and rub it in to the airplane, rub it into this grain, rub it into these deficits here, these areas where the wood is sanded differently than the filler. And anyway, it's a process, and takes a bit of time. And then I'll be shaping the nose. Probably put the landing gear together and attach it before I stick the engine on here. In fact, the engine probably won't go onto the airplane until after the wings are attached and everything else is done and the aircraft is painted. Won't put the engine on until after that's done. So I just wanted to get it together, see where it sits on here. It's a little close there, you see that? So what we'll probably do is mount it to a pedestal. Mount it to a pedestal and then here. Stick it on there with the pedestal behind it. Get that all square. Actually, this is a little crooked the way I have it, but you get the picture. Have a little standoff there from the firewall. It's all very important. I don't know to who, but yeah. Anyway, it's all part of the process. We've got a long ways to go, but this is what the seats ended up looking like. I put in the forward cockpit seat because that opening is going to be a little tight. This one I'll have a little more room. I'll be able to drop the seat in there after I cut this out. So I'm not worried about that at all. That's got to go in. But you know, there's a little more going to be work to be done on that. But that's how they came out. Not too bad. They look pretty good. I need to work on my color mixing again. I haven't really done it this way before. I've always used pre-mixed spray paints, and you know, their problem with that is the chemicals they use. And so I'm going to be mixing my own colors going forward, especially on, you know, the interior and small parts. I might still do the fuselage and wings with the rattle cans I'm familiar with, just because I'm familiar with it. I know what I'll get. These things are still a mystery, as is this stupid GoPro camera I'm dealing with. Still having problems with that, but anyway, this is where we sit today. Progress is being made. It's almost time to lay up the tail and the wings. And yeah, it'll be fun. You'll see how it comes together. Lots of good times.